I chose the role of director because I wanted to make a film where I was able to focus on the bigger picture and trust that the crew had their own roles covered, allowing us to make a high quality film we were proud of. At the end of semester 1, I set myself a few aims for the second semester. First, I wanted to lead crew meetings. I wanted to go to our meetings with a clear list of ideas of what needed to be discussed and what I needed from the crew. I aimed to do this as our meetings frequently turned into social gatherings with people discussing the other crews and films and getting distracted. Then, when we all went away believing people knew what to do, they wouldn't do it. In semester 2, I aimed to fix this and led the meetings more. When people started to be social, I would work out who I needed to talk to and get updates on how their pre-production was going, discussing shot ideas, sound plans, possible editing effects, and other aspects while people were getting distracted. This worked very well and meant people were always paying attention to what I wanted. I took this a step further and arranged more one-on-one meetings. I arranged a meeting with both DOPs to discuss what style, shots, and ideas they wanted included in the storyboard. I had meetings with the producer one-on-one to discuss how the crew was working, what needed to be done, and how to phrase messages in the group chat. These extra meetings were very helpful and built off one of my biggest learning points of the first semester: who to talk to. I had discovered in semester 1 that people weren't coming to me with ideas that I had to sort through and make decisions on. Instead, they were waiting for me to tell them what to do. I took this into semester 2 and knew who to talk to about ideas and who would be less proactive and would just do whatever. I was lucky enough to be in the same Friday studio class as one of my DOPs, leading us to having meetings after where we discussed thoughts on the week, progress, and creative ideas. This worked perfectly, as I took the semester 1 learning and knew he would be very helpful to discuss ideas with and bounce ideas off. We came up with many of the ideas in the film I'm most happy with during these meetings, with me suggesting an idea and him explaining the technical side and whether we could do it or not. My next biggest aim for the semester was fixing the schedules. For the showcase scene, I talked to the actor for around 10 minutes while the DOPs and production designer were setting up, but once we'd started filming, I only had time for a few notes here and there and had no time for extra takes. This was frustrating, as I chose directing in this module as I wanted to be able to work with actors and get performances I wanted while trusting the crew had the rest covered. Now that our writer has learned the AD role, I look forward to working with them and having time to talk scenes through thoroughly with actors and discuss the characters' motivations and the stakes of the scenes in the way I researched about in Stage Milk's Director's Chair series on how to work with actors. I also aimed to have time to redo shots that I wasn't happy with. I was mostly happy with how this went this semester, as I used the time with the DOP set up to walk the actors through my blocking and then discuss the motivations and stakes until everyone was set up. This meant I was able to communicate what I wanted through the actors' performances. I also fought to redo shots, redoing the schedules, timings with the AD and producer to allow for this. This meant I was much happier leaving shoots than I had been previously. My last aim was one I had at the start of semester 1 and will continue with. I will not touch any equipment in an effort to force myself to communicate my vision in other ways, which is something I really wanted to take this opportunity to learn. Much of my learning happened in the directing workshops. One of the most helpful workshops was the blocking one. We did a simple scene and then changed the blocking to see how it affected the character's dynamics and the subtext of the scene. In the first, we had a character who appears to be a villain standing facing away. This communicates they have all the power as they feel safe enough to turn their back on the other character. They're also standing up while the other is sat and is taking up more of the frame. This makes them seem more powerful, especially given this was done in a low angle. In the next two, we did an experiment. The first had me and another director standing face on, making us appear friendly, but not really communicating a lot or looking particularly visually interesting. I suggested adding a third character in the distance so we could see their entire body. This adds depth to the image, an idea I liked a lot. I researched this further by watching a video on the differences between the 1974 and 2017 versions of The Murder on the Orient Express. It discussed how in the original, the reveal scene was carefully blocked out in a cramped compartment with the detective walking from the foreground to the background through the suspects, leading to a tense and dramatic 30-minute finale, whereas the remake takes the scene off the train, has the detective facing a long table of suspects, limiting the camera to 2 shots and mid-shots, making it less visually interesting and taking away from the cramped style of the original. I took my understanding of blocking and worked out I could tell the story using only the blocking. Freya is always leading Quinn away from the evidence. She starts by taking her the long way round past the table to lead her away from the bag with all the clues in. Then she sends her back into the living room to get her away when she's looking through the bag. And finally, when Quinn walks in at the end, Freya moves the bag to hide it one final time. I was very happy with how this turned out. I believe it showcases the blocking skills I have learned. These skills are also clear in the wide shot of the investigation scene. I made sure to start foreshadowing that Freya was responsible for the murder. I blocked the scene so that first, Freya disappears from sight, showing that she is hiding something. She then leans around the corner trying to keep an eye on Quinn before leaving to be out of earshot. All of this effectively shows she isn't what she seems. I'm also very happy with this shot as it guides the audience's eye. First they watch Freya leave, then they see Quinn investigate before being drawn back to Freya. Then, as she leaves, back to Quinn, who guides them one final time to the dead body and the clues. Another way I furthered my leadership skills in the crew was by telling people what the crew needed from them. The best example of this is when I sent the crew a message after shooting with insignia homework. I wanted them to show the film in at least one screening with people who are neither film students or friends and family with whom we discussed the plot. This was so we could hear a set of fresh perspectives on the film and whether it was understandable, especially the twist. This led us to realise the ending wasn't landing. We discussed how for the ending to work, the audience needs to pick up on the 4 pieces of foreshadowing: the mask, the tattoo, the picture, and then, if those weren't enough, the change in Freya at the end. The problem was that the mask was very obvious, the tattoo was too thinly drawn, and 2 halves of the picture were seen with a 3-minute gap between, so the audience had time to forget. We weren't sure how to fix this, so decided to have a think and then come back together for an online meeting and compare ideas. I was watching the first 3 Saw films and spotted something that helped. When the Saw films reach their signature twists, the film includes flashbacks to important lines of exposition, foreshadowing, or important objects. I liked these flashbacks as they ensure every audience member understands the reveals, and this means they can sit back and enjoy the film knowing they've understood. These flashbacks are also stylized to keep them interesting, with quick, flashy editing and sped up movement. I realized this would fix our problem. I used my research into David F. Sandberg, who makes rough drafts of his ideas to better communicate them to crew members, and I made a rough edit using the most recent edit draft, and added quick zooms, flashes, and a camera shutter sound effect. This worked perfectly, and the crew understood the idea better than if I had just explained it. I made a final shot list of what we would need to achieve it, and discussed with the editor if we'd need special shots for him to cut to, or if we could just zoom in the shots we already had, saving time in the shoot. To ensure everyone would understand the twist, I also asked the production designer to get a poison vial to have a final clue. As the crew, we agreed that if at this point the audience doesn't know who the killer is, they aren't the correct target audience for the film. One of the places where I'd had my steepest learning curve is leading the crew in the right way. As mentioned in semester 1, people weren't giving me ideas to sort through and make decisions on, so I knew for this semester I would need to throw ideas at the crew and have them tell me if they were possible or not. This led to some of our most bold choices. The bright coloured lighting being blue and orange to represent the characters, and then shifting it to show the power dynamics, deliberately breaking the 180 rule in the void to show the change in power, and to show they were getting on with business now, shooting the entire final 3 scenes in the reshoot with the gimbal, allowing us to get all the coverage on each actor in one shot, and then getting a stationary yet interesting wide to cut back to, so that we have a more visually interesting ending, and sped up the process immensely. Making the void morph and reshape to make it seem endless with a split diopter shot. All of these ideas allowed crew members to show off what they had learned and add to the story, allowing us to have a more technically impressive film. In directing lectures, we were told that there would come a point where the crew knew more about their specialisms than us as directors. I decided this would be a strength instead of a weakness, and came up with ideas that may have been more technically challenging, and then discussed with the crew if they were even possible, leading to many interesting challenges that I feel made our film better. I found leading the crew in the right way a difficult responsibility. I found it difficult to walk the line between making the best film we can and making everyone happy. I have had to work on how I communicate with the crew, so I come across as passionate about the film and not as too blunt or rude. I believe I've improved at this. In the first week back, I messaged the group chat and questioned the script. The issue being that it was 13 pages long, and every positive I pointed out in the feedback was removed by the following draft. I tried to explain that as a director, it's difficult to feel inspired and excited by a film when the best parts disappear. My message was not phrased well, and led to the writer ignoring messages and refusing to respond in the group chat or with the crew members he lived with. Going into 3rd year and future projects, I would sit down with the writer and discuss ideas properly, as in-person conversations leave less room for miscommunication. In comparison to the industry, our crew was very different. This led to problems. In the industry, each person has their role they have been hired to do and they stick to it. In a professional setup, the writer would write and the director would give some notes. The rest of the crew would have no input. As we are a university crew, this is different, especially as the writer lives with the producer and editor. I believe this caused us issues, as they were giving different feedback and notes to what I was giving, causing the writer to feel overwhelmed and affecting the quality of the script. One of my key notes early on was the writer needed to focus on either the character solving her personal problems or solving the case. In trying to do both, I believe we didn't either. I watched another David F. Sandberg video, as I find them to be an interesting insight into directing both small short films and massive Hollywood blockbusters. He states that filmmaking is just problem solving. I am very happy with my problem solving on set. I was able to rewrite the schedule and adjust timings on the day to allow for extra takes when needed, or fix scheduling errors. Another problem we had was late suggestions. The same people suggesting ideas on set were the ones who had not done pre-production work and were also worried about running over schedule. After shooting, I sent a message to the crew explaining that there is a time and place for ideas and it's in pre-production, especially if we were already on a tight schedule. I reiterated that I was doing my best to listen to the crew and had been implementing all their best ideas, but that it was my role to ensure the film came together as a whole, and that I'd asked them all to look over the plan a few days before in case they felt things could be added. This didn't happen, as the crew suggested ideas on the day and also thought we had to film triple the shots we did. I know for next time to sit down with the crew and ensure everyone has read all pre-production documents before filming. Overall, while I'm not 100% happy with the film and feel improvements could be made, I am extremely happy with how much I have learned as a director and filmmaker, and aim to take all of this knowledge into third year, where I hope to direct again and make a film I feel I've had full creative control over, and is a reflection of the skills I have learned.